We've been playing Ashland since the 90s. It's just hard for me to remember when and where. The clubs that we've played here lately, we've played both incarnations of the Mobius, and we're on the road right now supporting our new record, One Day in Brooklyn. It just came out September 1st. And this lineup's been on the road since the middle of January, actually. So this is our third time to do the West Coast this year.
How are the West Coast audiences different than other places?
I don't know, I mean, it depends on what part of the West Coast. I mean, it's generally... America has gotten to a point where it's kind of homogenized, where people are pretty excited all over that we're coming. How are West Coast audiences different? I think they can take a lot longer sets. I think West Coast audiences like a 3-hour set, whereas like a lot of other parts of the country, people prefer maybe an hour set with a break, and it seems like West Coast audiences kind of in it to win it, maybe a little more in some ways. Certainly it reminds me of the East Coast, where like the East Coast you can play a 3-hour set and it doesn't faze anybody, People think you just played a 30-minute set, but West Coast audiences are just super welcoming, for sure. Always have been. We've been playing the West Coast since '97, and we play the West Coast as much as we play any part of the U.S. We probably play the East Coast and the West Coast. We probably hit each coast 3 times a year.
Okay. So I'm pretty familiar with the trio with Reed Mathis and Jason Smart, or you have various drummers. Tell me about the new direction you're going with the new band.
Sure, the new direction. It's myself and 3 other guys. It's a quartet now, and all 3 of those guys grew up listening to Jacob Fred. They started listening to Jacob Fred when they were in late middle school, early high school. So they're totally immersed in the language. And in fact, they've been sort of reteaching it back to me. So, it's not like I just got some guys that can play and took them on the road. These guys have been studying Jacob Fred ever since they were kids. The new direction's really influenced by music like Bob Wills and J.J. Cale and Leon Russell and stuff like that, but it's equally as influenced by classical music and jazz, of course. I mean, we're pretty much, each tune is different depending on the composer. All 4 of us compose in this lineup, and all 4 of us have very different compositional concepts and styles. And then we also write a lot of tunes together as a group. So.
Do you find that you're still able to... It seems like you've always been able to find a great balance between acoustic and electric sound.
Absolutely.
Between original compositions and jazz standards. And
yeah, it's still an important part of our sound. Like, just on this tour alone, we've probably done half jazz clubs and half rock clubs. And at the jazz clubs, I play piano, and I don't even bring the Rhodes in. And at the rock clubs, I play Fender Rhodes, and that's one of my favorite things about Jacob Fred, and always has been, is just how diverse the ensemble is. We're just as comfortable playing at Yoshi's or the Blue Note as we are playing at a hippie festival or playing at a rock festival. We enjoy them both, and we play to it. We're very good at playing to a quiet jazz audience, and we're very good at playing to a loud rock audience. I think they're both very important.
yeah.
I think it's important to be able to do both.
Tell me a little bit more about the Oklahoma in your music.
Sure. Well, since the beginning of last year, we've been using lap steel in Jake and Fred. Really, since the beginning of '08, even when we were recreating Lil Tay Rides Again, we were using lap steel live. And the lap steel is an important part of our Okie sound. The upright bass is an important part of our Okie sound, and really just the aesthetic of it. You know, as we've gotten older, we've gotten more into sort of reflecting those big, huge skies, and I think our music is music of beauty, and I think it's really influenced. You know, it's influenced by really urban music, but it's just as influenced by country music and by music of the more open spaces like red dirt music and western swing and folk. On good nights, we kind of sound like the way a Oklahoma sunset looks. Hopefully, you know, especially as I've gotten older, I've yearned more for a simpler sound and a less chaotic sound. And we like to take a while to develop stuff, and I think a slow development and being able to grow something like a tree, not just growing an ensemble like a tree, but actually growing a composition on stage nice and slow, I think that's important, and we try not to rush into stuff. But yeah, I think what we do is super unique. I mean, it's like part of the jazz language, it's part of the jazz idiom, but it's a jazz, you know, we're speaking a dialect within the jazz idiom that's all our own.
Mm-hmm.